And so just like how insulin resistance is unique in PCOS, right? It's selective insulin resistance. Your metabolism is also different in the universe of PCOS. Now you might have heard yourself say, or you might have heard your friends say that, hey, I'm not losing weight because my metabolism is slow. But to really understand and unpack what this statement means, what exactly is metabolism? So when people say that my metabolism is slow, what they mean is that my body is burning lesser calories than it should, even though I'm doing everything right. So I'm eating nice, I'm eating healthy, I'm working out every day, I'm sleeping well, but my metabolism is slow, so I will not burn fat. But to understand metabolism, we need to understand three key concepts: BMR, the thermic effect of food, and NEAT, N-E-A-T, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So let's pick each one and just dive into it. Okay, so BMR is known as your basal metabolic rate. It is also known as your body's maintenance mode. So BMR is basically the minimum number of calories your body will burn at rest if you don't do anything at all, like you just sit around, do nothing at all. These are the minimum number of calories your body will burn just to keep you alive. So just to keep your heart beating, your brain thinking, allow air to go inside your lungs and out of your lungs, right? To keep the blood pumping. And this is 60 to 70% of the total amount of calories your body expends in a day. Now, what happens in the universe of PCOS though is your body burns 400 kilocalories lesser than other women who don't have PCOS. Why? Because biologically, your hormones are not at the same levels. So the hormonal imbalance actually has such wide-reaching effects that your BMR is at a disadvantage too. So you burn 400 calories less. So if your friend's BMR is say 1200, your BMR is likely around 800. And in certain cases, we've seen that women with selective insulin resistance, their BMR might be 700 calories lower. Now moving on to NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Have you heard of 10K steps? That habit that is so popular. Now 10K steps was devised so that you could boost your NEAT, which is 10 to 20% of your daily calorie expenditure, which basically comes from fidgeting, moving around, going from one room to another, basically, showcasing signs of extra energy. And if you walk 10K steps, between your work day, get up every 30 minutes or so, then you are going to maximize your NEAT, which is your NEAT. But did you know, in the PCOS universe, when your body is in a state of stress, inflammation, digestive distress, where you're like feeling bloated, you're feeling lethargic, you're not going to move that much. So your NEAT, you're never really maximizing your NEAT. So your NEAT percentage goes down as low as 2% or even in some cases 1%. Now NEAT can vary a lot between people. Some people in both universes, normal and in PCOS, we've noticed that people can burn up to 300 or 400 calories a day just by fidgeting and moving around. But if your body resists that, like it does not want to, it's not that active, as a person, it also depends on who you are as a person, right? So if you're somebody who does not like to really leave their desk in general, right? You're going to move around a lot less. And so your NEAT for the day might just be 50 calories. There was a meta-analysis done, which is basically a study of studies, that showcased that when you're on a low-carb diet, your NEAT is at its lowest because the lack of available energy, because you're on a low-carb diet, so not enough carbohydrates, you tend to move a lot less. So when your NEAT reduces, you won't feel spontaneous. You won't feel like just going out for a coffee with your friend. You'll be like, nah, let me just be at home on my bed. I'm too lazy. I don't want to go anywhere. You start feeling that way. So a low-carb diet leads to a slowdown of your metabolism, especially for NEAT. And so along those lines, if we look at the third concept, which is TEF, or thermic effect of food, which is basically the amount of energy that your body burns to digest food, it was found that if you are following a low carb diet, then your thermic effect of food also drops, because you're technically under eating, or you're skipping meals. There are not enough calories that you're consuming, there's not enough volume that you're consuming for your body to burn it. Now, if you eat high protein food, that's going to obviously help, because protein is very tough to digest, and so your body has to expend more calories to digest it. So the summation of all of these three different variables, BMR, NEAT, and TEF, is what contributes to metabolism. So I want you to think of each of these three pillars as lights. Now, if each of them are glowing very dimly, that's a sign of slow metabolism. So especially if you do a lot of crash dieting, a lot of intermittent fasting, focusing on eating very little food in a day mainly, or keto, or just low carb in general, then you will notice that all three of these lights are getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. So it might feel like you're eating lesser than ever before just to see the number drop on the scale, but you also don't feel very good. You don't feel vital. You don't feel like you have this boundless amount of energy to do whatever you want, and rather something is kind of capping you. And some women also report brain fog as a very early symptom of slow metabolism, where they're like, it's 10 a.m., but I'm just not attentive in the meeting. I don't know what's going on. I had my coffee, I had my breakfast, but I'm still not attentive. And these are some of the ripple effects of a slow metabolism that we see. So over time, with slow metabolism, your body adapts into what we call as a survival mode, where it's kind of exactly fighting for survival. So your body learns to, run on less calories. And how this affects your hormones is your leptin goes down, your cortisol goes up, and your thyroid goes down. So slow metabolism is basically your body adjusting to lack of fuel, lack of nutrients. And it's basically saying that, okay, because I don't have enough energy, let's not go out and get a walk in even though it's a sunny day. I just want you to know that it's not discipline. It's not that, you're not a peppy person. It's just that the way our hormones behave inside us governs a lot about how we feel and what we do with our time. So now that I've introduced a little bit of what low carb does to your hormones, let's dive deep specifically into the thyroid hormone, one of the most important hormones in the body that gets significantly impacted when you go on a low carb diet. But for me to really walk you through how and why this impact is so deep, we need to first understand why you need to care about this hormone, right? Thyroid determines the pace at which your body burns fat. So I want you to think about thyroid as the thermostat of the body. It controls the temperature of your body. It controls how warm you feel, how much energy you would have. It controls how easily you lose fat, and how much energy and how much free energy you have to, move around and to just live your life. Now, if your thyroid is on point, you will feel clear, focused, energetic, spontaneous. You will feel warm, able to do things just like normal. Your body will respond to nutrition and training as well, and you will also lose fat. But if your thyroid is underactive, then everything slows down. You start to feel the exact opposite. So you would feel a bit colder, lazier, demotivated, not too excited to do things. It's like your body has gone into power saving mode. So what exactly is the thyroid gland producing? So it makes two main hormones. We have the T4 hormone, which is an inactive form of energy. It's like stored energy, right? It's not readily usable. But it's T4. It's called as T4. And then we have T3, which is called as the active form of the thyroid hormone. And this is the one that actually kind of gives you the energy. It fuels your brain energy. It helps you feel more active. It also helps with digestion, period regularity, mood balance. Now, here's an insight you might not know. Most of your T3 actually comes from conversion of the T4, which is the inactive energy that we talked about. It comes from the conversion of T4. And this conversion happens inside your gut, inside your liver, and in your muscles. So now when you drop your carbs for too long, the body does not think of it as, yay, we're going to lose fat. Instead, it starts thinking of it as, oh shoot, we don't have enough energy. And this kicks off a hormone chain reaction because now the body gets into this zone of preparation to survive. So here are some practical effects that you might see. Firstly, you start feeling cold, especially cold hands and cold feet, even if no one else is really feeling it. So the temperature starts to become more temperature sensitive. Even though you've had a full night's sleep, you're not feeling awake the next day morning. Even though you've had coffee, you kind of feel a little bit sluggish. Your digestion slows down, which leads to a lot of bloating and digestive distress internally. You might even get constipation or diarrhea because of this. You gain weight easily, even though you've not really increased your calories or reduced your, exercising or anything like that. And you just, in general, feel puffy, bloated. You just kind of feel flat and demotivated overall. This is called as a sluggish metabolism. So low carb is not just about lowering calories, it's lowering the efficacy of your hormones. What was working normally is now not working under normal conditions. So along with thyroid, there are 4 other hormones which get impacted. So I want to introduce you to four main characters. So we have leptin, ghrelin, serotonin, and cortisol. So carbs are actually involved at a hormonal signaling level. And this is a very crucial piece of information a lot of women are missing about carbs. It's not just calories, it's not just carbs hold 4 molecules of water. It actually helps how different parts of your body talk to each other. First, let me walk you through what each character does. So leptin basically is known as a satisfaction hormone. It tells your brain that we are satisfied, we are safe, and we can thrive now. The ghrelin is known as your hunger hormone. This is what triggers the enzymes in your gut, the hydrochloric acid, prepares your body to receive fuel and metabolize it. Now, the serotonin is known as your feel-good hormone. And this hormone basically gets released when you're doing, when you're working out, when you're engaging in productive activities, going out on a walk, playing with your dog. Serotonin is also responsible for supporting sleep and mood. It also helps with reducing of PMS flare-ups. And then we have the cortisol, which is nothing but your main stress hormone. And cortisol has a natural rhythm of, rising in the morning, and then towards the end of the day, it starts sort of, depleting. But cortisol typically rises when carbs are restricted. And then it stays elevated for much longer. It does not drop that easily, even during times when it should start dropping. So abnormality of cortisol function. Now, when you go low carb, leptin drops. So it signals your brain that you're in starvation mode. Secondly, ghrelin increases, which means you start feeling hungrier and hungrier, almost at a primal level. And more food obsessed. So this is when a lot of people notice food noise coming in. Serotonin starts dropping, which means that you have low mood, poor sleep, your PMS flares up. You're also a little bit more irritable. And your cortisol spikes. So this is when you feel more stressed in general, you feel wired, but drained, and your insulin resistance worsens. Now, as we already know that in the PCOS universe, your hormonal balance is already fragile. Cortisol is 30% higher than normal, insulin is 30% lower than normal. So think about this. When you go low carb, you're already signaling these hormones to behave weirdly. And in the PCOS universe, things are already off. So it's kind of a double whammy. So it tends to amplify every single symptom and not in a good way. So this is why a lot of women tend to report that when they go on a low carb diet, the first thing that disappears is their period. I don't know if you've heard of this, but in the bodybuilding universe, when women kind of lose body fat to compete on stage for physique competitions, they typically report something called as amenorrhea, which is the loss of a period. especially when they are at very, very low body fat percentages. And this is because since they need to get to that level of stage lean, which is like a single digit body fat percentage, they kind of need to do it quickly. They need to do it in a 12-week or a 14-week period, because typically that's how they prepare for competitions. And the first macronutrient that goes is carbohydrates. And when carbohydrates are dropped, as I just discussed, a lot of your hormones get impacted. And because of which, the first thing that they lose is their period. So I had a client who actually decided to follow that. She went on an 800 calorie diet because that's what some online macro calculator told her to do. And she was promised that if she does this, she will lose 2 kilos per week. And she was blown away. She's like, wow, let me do this. She actually stopped after 2 to 3 weeks. She lost a total of 3 kilos, but that's not it. That's not it. She lost her stamina. She lost her period. And guess what? 3 months after she stopped her diet, she still didn't have her period. So her hormones, before she started this whole low carb 800 calorie thing, were probably like this. They were balanced. And then because of this strict extreme diet, they became like this. And guess what? It's very easy for hormones to go this far apart, this out of balance. But it's very difficult. It takes a lot of strategic planning with nutrition, workout, sleep, and patience, of course, for that to come back to normal. So while she lost her period because of 2 weeks of dieting, what I'm trying to tell you is that it took her 3 to 5 months for her body to feel safe again to actually naturally ovulate.